record to this computer. All right. Well, before we get rocking and rolling here, let's give a second for all the live streaming, platforms to grab hold. Flying solo today, so we'll do the best we can, but I'm not promising like major success here. There could be a catastrophe at any minute, any moment, because the beautiful co-host of One on One Live with Coach Blu is in New York City with my daughter as a graduation present. We named her Brooklyn, and so we thought, hey, let's take her to Brooklyn, New York, and they're out there seeing a bunch of shows and doing a lot of fun stuff for all of Brooklyn's accomplishments. So flying solo here today, but we'll get it going. Welcome everyone to One on One Live with Coach Blu. So good to have you guys here. This will be a podcast. Will be posted later this week. And after a couple of weeks of hiatus, we are back in business. So much to talk about. Got lots of good questions today. One that I want to take a deep dive on, and again, if you have a question, you can share it with us through asking on the social media outlets. You can email us. You can find a way to get your questions to us. We'll answer them live on the air. If we don't, we will do our best to answer them and send you a direct message. But this is an opportunity for you to talk about anything that you might need a little bit of help with, maybe some understanding, or maybe even just a little bit of venting. It's a platform for you to talk to me and I guess the other athletes that tune in about some things that are going on. I'm a substance use disorder counselor and a clinical mental health therapist. Been working in the field for a little over 20 years. And got quite a bit of experience when it comes to all natures of addiction, mental health, dual diagnosis, health and recreation. So whatever's on your mind or in your heart, we definitely can help you, lighten the burden a bit. But nonetheless, let's jump into a few things that I wanted to touch base with you first and foremost, and that is the calendar of events. We've got so much coming down the pipeline for you guys. I'm excited. On June 16th, we are opening another chapter of Team Attitude Athlete here in the state of Utah, Sevier County. You're going to have your Sevier County. You're going to have your kickoff on Thursday, June 16th at the Sevier County Administration Building. We are looking forward to expanding and bringing this message down to you guys. This has been something in the works for quite a while. And I'm telling you, a few that are taking the Sober Coach training, you're going to be in great hands. I'm so excited for the leadership that's been down there. And so really, Sevier County, you're going to be greatly benefited by the people that are putting in the time and the energy to get trained. And I look forward to meeting all of you. So we're going to be down there June 16th. It's a Thursday at the Sevier County Administration Building, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll be doing a presentation. We'll be bringing some t-shirts and some stickers and fun stuff to kick this program off the right way. Now, the No One Left Behind Team Half Marathon. We've got that scheduled for June 25th. This is going to be in Spanish Fork, Utah. And we've had low numbers right now registering because I didn't realize we're competing with a bunch of big races. But you know what? This is fun because it's a casual race. This isn't a lean in and slam the pedal to the metal. This is about having experience. This team marathon concept and the No One Left Behind, I guess, message is that you pick a couple of your friends or maybe a couple of strangers that want to go run, or you can talk into running, and you have the experience with them. You can be no further than 15 feet away from one another, and you have to all finish together. And the thing about this is it's a metaphor for how we feel in recovery. There are times when life starts taking over and sometimes you get left behind. This is not what Team Attitude Athlete does. This is a metaphoric race about having the experience and finding that passion in the journey and coming in as a team and building each other up to some of the difficulties. That's why we picked a half marathon distance because that's a length that is doable, but it takes some effort. It's not easy. And so if you have two of your friends to kind of count on, the miles will go by pretty quick, and you'll see not only will you guys have an amazing experience, but you're going to build lifelong relationships here. And we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the month, but yeah, sign up now. Even though we have low numbers, we are still going to do this because I see the message that it can produce. And next year, maybe we'll tune in a little bit to find a better day, but you know what? Come have a good time. If you're looking for discount codes or whatnot, let us know. We can get you guys in. It's going to be a great time. So again, this is a marathon. This is the half marathon. That's not really so much who comes in first, second, or third. It's about making sure that each of you cross that finish line and accomplish the goals that you set for yourself. And our fireworks show, man, we Addict to Athlete and athlete Rob Rich puts on the most amazing fireworks show. Started several years ago. And I remember when we were first invited to come hang out with the Rich family and participate with this. It was called the Cul-de-sac on Fire, but it's gotten so big, and because of moving and things, it's the Park of Fire. And so we have a great show that's being developed right now, and it's going to be on Saturday, July 2nd, at the Art Dye Park in American Fork, Utah. It's going to be 4:30 to 10:30. We're gonna have food. We're gonna have some games for the kids. It is a world-class fireworks show. It's a bunch of amateurs out there, but Rob's been doing this so much. It's almost like he has his own understanding on how to make these things go off in synchronicity. It's amazing. So it's a fun family tradition that we have. It's a great way to spend a sober 4th of July. And more so if you're apprehensive about some of the athletics and some of the things we do, these kind of opportunities give you a clear window into what Team Addict to Athlete does, the relationships that are built, the team spirit. And I love it because it's that family system development. So that's going to be Saturday, July 2nd at the Art Dye Park. We'll have more information on this. Like I said, food, it's good stuff, going to be fun. For all of you guys that come tackle the half marathon and you're like, I want to do a full marathon now. A couple of our athletes and coaches down in Beaver County have created and started the Beaver County Marathon. This is Saturday, August 6th. Okay. And so you got some time to train. So if you want to get trained, you better get moving on it. But we need volunteers too. And what a great way to tick off some of your service hours, what have you, to come work with the nonprofit program with Addict to Athlete by doing this kind of stuff. All of the links and registration are there on our website, addicttoathlete.org. So Saturday, August 6th, there you go. And then, of course, I want to plug the most important event this year, and that's going to be on September 5th. It's our Addict to Athlete annual recovery run entitled the Proxy Run. This is a very near and dear run that we've had going on now for the full 11 years that Team Addict to Athlete's been in existence. And it's gotten so big and to the point now that this proxy run, by which on your bib you write down the name of a person that you might have lost to addiction, suicide, accidental overdose, what have you, and you run proxy for them. You keep their memory alive, and great healing comes with every stride in this event. Because what you see is the camaraderie, and you see the hearts that unfortunately have that missing person, in common. The proxy run has become a very emotionally yet like therapeutic event. So this is going to happen on Monday, September 5th, again in Spanish Fork, Utah. I want to thank Spanish Fork and their Parks and Recreation Department for allowing Addict to Athlete to participate there. They're great to work with. They understand our message, and I've really appreciated them. But it is an amazing event. We have all of our bibs and everything all ready to go. It's an emotional one because there's a section within this run that you'll do so in silence, and that's a tribute and a memory to the person that you're running for, and they'll run alongside you. I guarantee it. So there'll be more information to that, but registration for both the No One Left Behind and the proxy run is on addicttoathlete.org. Okay. Did you guys know that today is Global Running Day? The 1st of June. It's the Global Running Day. So I want to see your pictures. I want to see you guys out there running. I don't care if it's lunchtime. I don't care if it's tonight. Coach Blu and one of our great friends and team and athletes themselves, Josh Hansen, we started a new podcast today. It launched today. You're going to get 2 episodes of that. It's called the Party in the Back podcast with Josh Hansen and Coach Blu Robinson. And what we're going to be doing on there is having lots of fun discussions on everything running, recreation, and getting through the suck of life by moving, right? I'm a big proponent to the concept that movement equals healing. The Party in the Back podcast is going to be a little bit of fun and humor with some some thoughts that we have on how to get through some of the tough parts, having some fun while you're in the middle of it, and really having the Party in the Back mentality where if you want and you win the race, fantastic. But if you're like us, sometimes you find yourself towards the back. And that's where the real amazing stuff happens. So we're going to talk about inspirational stories. We'll talk about some pop culture stuff. We'll talk about some things that we see in the industry, you know, running shoes. We're going to have some coaches come on, talk about running techniques and stuff. It's going to be a real fun podcast. It's a little bit lighter than the Addict Athlete podcast and the other ones we do. But yeah, check it out. It's available now. Jump on the social medias. If you get on, you can see that we've made links to the Addict Athlete page. But yeah, it's great fun. We're gonna drop 8 straight episodes. You'll have one a day for the next 8 days, starting with today's kickoff, which is again the Global Running Day. So you guys, check all this stuff out. We got so much stuff going on, and it really is nice because you know, it shows us how just by putting one foot in front of the other, we can accomplish some flipping amazing things. All right. So questions. We got lots of questions today, and I'm sorry we have been a little bit behind on answering some of these. But this one today stuck out because we've all gone through this, and I'm a bit perplexed myself sometimes when this stuff happens, especially as adults. I've noticed that there's times in life, especially when I was a kid, that I sometimes gave adults way too much credit because I thought adults, by the time they peaked at a certain age, would have stuff figured out. That's not always the case, I've noticed. And so this first question comes, and it's been a while since we've talked about this, but this first question kind of resonates with me because we've been the recipient of some of this. I know a lot of folks I've worked with have been. And we typically think that this specific issue only happens to kids, to teenagers, right? But what about dealing with adult bullying? This question is kind of interesting. It says, Coach, thanks so much for all that you guys do. I have a question for you. I have an ex-spouse who is making my life so traumatically problematic that it's been hard for me to keep a positive attitude. There's been so many days where I've wanted to just throw in the towel because the constant beratement, the negativity, the accusations, and what it does to a point is make me think that what I'm doing is wrong. He's convinced me that all that I'm doing is for naught and that eventually I will end up relapsing. So what's the point? It's so passive aggressive that it's hard for me to fight back or to even want to. But I feel as though when I try to explain this to people in my family, my friends, they say ignore it. But what happens when you can't? What happens when it's so overwhelming? It does ruin your day, your week, your month, your year, and unfortunately, even your life. Help. Okay. This is a big one. And the reason why I wanted to address this today is because we've been a recipient of some bullying. Many of you might have received emails lately about an individual who's upset with the program because of circumstances and things. And I'm sorry for that, but it comes with the territory. And what I mean by that is it comes with the territory. Specifically, let's start from the foundation level. This individual, she's talking about this because she's made some huge changes in life. And these huge changes have come with a lot of changing of attitudes, changing of I guess, values and goals. And a lot of times what happens when you start making genuine change, you tend to, not on purpose, but leave people behind. Because people that aren't aligned with your goals, when they see you making change, they're going to do one of two things. Either they're going to try and take it from you by harassing or by bullying or by gaslighting, you know, or they're going to follow you up that ladder because they see and think, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. Unfortunately, what I find in a lot of addiction recovery, specifically in really entrenched, downtrodden family systems, is that it's almost like we talked about this in the past, the analogy of the crabs in the basket. And I've seen this firsthand, where there's a crab basket on the dock of whatever, if you think of Maine or somewhere, right? And there's no lid on these things because each crab works against each other as one tries to escape. And they're just feet or inches away from freedom. But as that little crab crawls up, you know, oh, I'm going to get free, another one will reach up and grab it and pull it down because it wants to climb out. And they work against each other. So I thought, well, why put lids on these things? They're just going to be working against each other. That happens more often than you might think in the world of addiction recovery. Okay, so let's break down before we dive into how to deal with adult bullying and harassment. Um, let's take a deep dive onto why that happens. Now, the crazy thing about adults and that kind of behavior is that they've obviously been hurt. The individual that's done this with us has been hurt. The individual who's done this to this woman who's proposed this question has been hurt. You see it a lot in TV and news stories. Someone's been hurt, and instead of being able to be authentic with that and to describe the situation for what it is, they passively aggressively put it back on your plate. And what I've noticed is they use some great control talk. And when you figure this stuff out, you start realizing that communication is more of a dance, right? And we've done podcasts on this. There's been some stuff I've done for the extracurricular recovery program on communication. But communication is an art. And what happens is people in the situation get stuck in what's called control talk. And control talk, if you think about it, has two subcategories. So if I'm going to control the conversation, I'm going to give you two subcategories. One is we're just going to fight, and I'm just going to riddle you with my emotional and mental intellect until you cannot breathe anymore. And I'll just keep berating you, and I'll keep calling you names, and I'll keep making this all your fault. And I'm going to win this fight because I can last longer in the corner and on the mat than you can. But the more dangerous one, I think, is the passive aggressive or the spite talker. Now, the spite talker has a little bit more eloquence behind the way they communicate in control talk, because this is where they will attack you, but passively. So it could be like, well, you're always coming home late, always saying you don't have any money, but all the responsibilities here are mine. So you go out and have a great time this evening, and I'll just be here. And of course, you get upset. We're like, well, we've talked about this, or I'm doing that, and you're not doing this. And so you're reacting to what they're saying. But because they're kind of coming at you passively aggressive, they can also say, I'm just kind of stating my point of view. So I'm not meant to make you mad. You always get mad when I'm asking these questions. So I'll just stop talking to you. And that makes you more mad. Well, they know what they're doing, because if they can kind of take that passive approach and spite talk you, and you lose your mind because you're reactively listening to that, they're in control of the conversation. Now, unfortunately, this happens a lot, and you can read it from a mile away. And it's interesting because her question specifically, because this person doesn't act like this around other people. So other people are like scratching their head thinking, how could what he's saying to you be so negative? Because I've always had great experiences with him. And you're the one that has the addiction. So maybe you're seeing it, different. But see, that's that triangulation. That's that, someone putting an arm around somebody else being like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Yeah, man, they're not doing very good. In fact, I heard this, that, and that. So we just kind of stay away from them because, I wouldn't trust them. In fact, I wouldn't let your kids go over to their house. There's no way, and do not loan them money. And they're worm tonguing, this person, so that then that person's like on their team. Now, turf guarding is an interesting thing. It happens in family systems. It happens in employment. But if I can get other people on my side, by talking crap about someone or something, well, then I've won. But it's how you respond to that, right? Now, here's the deal. Passive aggressive behavior like that, it's a way of expressing those negative emotions like anger or annoyance instead of being direct. And the problem with being direct with most of these people is once you give them the platform, they wouldn't know what to say because they're not willing to identify what's really pushing the anger. They're not willing to say, you know what, this relationship hurt. And I'm going to own my stuff as much as I hope you'll own your stuff. But most people won't do that because that means admitting that they might be in the wrong. And when they're really supercharged and they're on their high and mighty horse, if they admit they're wrong, well, then it's game over. Most of the time, there's some borderline personality flares. There's some narcissism in there, and they can't see it. So you try to convince a narcissistic person that they're seeing it wrong. Oh, have mercy, right? So what do, right? Because this passive aggressive behavior can get kind of hairy sometimes. It can get really scary sometimes. But passive aggressive behavior is, instead of getting like visually angry or hostile, people will use their intellect or their power or their status to deal with issues by poking and nagging and like you said, like poking the fire until it blows up. And the crazy thing about that too is that in their mind they believe that they're right, they're correct. It takes a lot of emotional stability to not get sucked into that. So a lot of things that we've done with the situation we have is we're not engaging with it. We're channeling all of this negativity to the people that can do stuff about it. And, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll jump into this. So what do you do? How do you deal with an adult bully? It's the funniest thing because we tell kids this all the time, right? Oh, just ignore them. Just, do that. But what if they double, triple, quadruple down? See, the situation that we're going through is a lot different. Obviously, we have a huge track record and we have a lot of people that are like, that guy's out there in left field. And that's fine. But for her, in her situation, she doesn't have a lot of people on her side because in her world, this individual who's calling her a bad mother, who is, threatening to call DCFS and using all these things, he's targeting her so directly and cutting off a lot of her supply of people. And because she has a quote unquote history, who's going to believe her? Now, this stuff, you guys, oh, it tears me up. It hurts. I do not like this. I've had situations by which athletes and clients of mine have gone into, to be interviewed by police for other questioning. But once they find out that there's a history of addiction, it's like, well, okay. I've had athletes and clients talk about going in to seek medical attention. But once it was kind of described as, yeah, I have a history, it was like, all right. And they get treated differently. And so it's hard when you have a lot of emotional and I want to say physical proof that there are times when you are being segregated, you are being stigmatized, right? And so how do you deal with an adult bully? Well, most of us have encountered a bully in our life. Hopefully none of us have been the bully in our life, but while I think many of us have had that childhood experience, I didn't realize until I started diving into social media how rampant this can become, myself included. I've got to hold myself back a lot of times because I, like most people, have very strong opinions. But I've noticed when I'm trying to armchair quarterback situations on social media, I'm thinking, who do I think I am? How narcissistic is my approach, right? If I'm like messaging someone or writing a comment on something that they've made on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and I'm like that passionate about it, I'm thinking, who's going to read this anyway? Like, who's going to be like this random person, middle America is like, whoever this Blue Robinson is a smart man. He sees it this way. And we like it when we get the like buttons and we only get the thumbs up and stuff. And we hate it when we get the angry faces. So I'm like, you know what, at that level, there's nothing I can do here. So keep your opinions to yourself. I've had to adopt that model because I've learned through harsh experience that I don't like getting in debates with people about things because the problem is my opinion's not going to change. They're not going to change theirs. So what's the point of doing this? Well, it's engaging because we get upset, we get hurt, we get disappointed, we get frustrated. We're seeing it a lot in our country right now. This whole situation that we've set with the tragedies that have been going down. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, we've had humongous tragedy in my community. There's been 3 or 4 people that have passed away due to gun violence here. And I'm like, I can get up on a platform, but what's that going to do? We'll get into that on another subject. But what happens is I notice that people start bullying each other. Well, you're stupid because you voted for this person. You're dumb because you voted for that, or you're weak-minded because you belong to that religion, or you're being brainwashed because of this. It's the dumbest thing. But when it turns into bullying, we start really kind of questioning like our own investment. So what constitutes adult bullying? Just like this individual that she's talking about, I would say like children and teenagers bullies can be adults. We have to understand that they really can be. And a bully is kind of just defined as someone who really makes you feel oppressed, belittled, humiliated, or de-energized. And I think that that's kind of an interesting platform because it doesn't take a lot for people in early recovery to start feeling self-conscious, to start feeling as though they're doing something wrong. And when they put themselves out there and they get the, well, you've said you're going to make change before and you're not, and we'll believe it when we see it. Those are all those passive aggressive kind of like spite talks. Well, you've said you were done before, so good luck. Just don't come to me when you need bail money. Ouch, right? And I can understand why there'd be a little bit of apprehension, but why would we crap on someone that wants to make some change, even if it takes some time? Why not, man, I'm here. I understand. I'm nervous for you. Give it a go. Let's see what you've got. Let's get you where you need to be. How are you doing this? Help me understand what's different for you. How are you seeing this, from this perspective? But instead, because we don't connect with the real feelings, we come up with all that other bull crap. We pee on their parade, so to speak, right? Well, the cruel intentions and actions that can be, I think, felt and experienced from these people, they can include things like insults, inappropriate joking, threats, public shaming. Public shaming and threats are a big one. It's kind of an interesting thing, right? That's why I think Yelp reviews and Google reviews, even the good ones, I think they're all kind of dumb. Because the funny part about this, people get on Google reviews and they get on these, and it's funny because we've got a Google review on there from this individual. It's kind of a funny thing, but it's one point of view, it's one perspective. I think that we shouldn't take credit for the good ones, and we certainly shouldn't listen to the bad ones. You have to be the person that truly invests to say, yes, this person, this program, this restaurant, this corporation, this entity is worth investing in. Other people's opinions shouldn't shape yours until you've experienced it. So that's why I think it's kind of a hard thing too, right? Because she's in a situation where this person is making her life hell by constantly berating her and then telling the stakeholders and the others in her life that she can't be trusted, and vice versa, and all that and then some. And so she's afraid to move. She's afraid to ask for extra time with her kids. She's afraid to, question his authority because everyone's looking down. Now, if we can humiliate someone or oppress them or belittle them as an aggressor, what kind of power does that give that person? This is why it's important for us to understand that we all will go through this at one time or another, through childhood, obviously, but more so in adulthood. And sometimes, this can look like in an adult situation. Let's take a boss, for instance, like a micromanager. Man, I had a micromanager at a job that I absolutely loved. And I left that job because of this bullying and this harassment. And it was crazy because I'm like, he would say things to me like, you got to leave your door open more often. If you don't leave your door open, you're not a good therapist. What? What does that have to do with anything? I got dinged once on a performance review because I shut my door because my office was in the middle of a very loud and obnoxious lobby. And he's like, I'm dinging you because your door's not open. You're not welcoming people in. It's like, I can't get anything done because people are coming in. And he would constantly do that. And so then when you'd question him, then he'd be like, well, why are you questioning me? I'm just asking questions. Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. I felt like a jailbird, there's a little pun in there, so you might know who that is. Nonetheless, again, harassment. Nonetheless, I think that when we get into that mindset though, and we don't feel as though we're being heard, we're being listened to, that's where the real, I think, trauma can be re-exposed. And the funny thing too is you look at it this way. We are like the harassment and some of the bullying that Team Addicts athlete gets, specifically myself and Marissa, we can handle. We are safe people for this because we're not going to retaliate. We're not going to like throw people under the bus. Like if you have real concerns, let us know. This situation that we're going through is not a real concern. It's he's upset and that's causing some ripples and some waves. Okay. But I think about her and like, what are the residual effects of what you're going through with this situation? you've been cut off, you've been misled, and it needs to be, I guess, defined. Is it bullying or is it harassment? Because I think sometimes we forget that they are two very different things. Although they're very comparable, I think that the terms have very different meanings. Bullying and harassment are similar in that they both kind of exert power and control. There are acts that are intentionally meant to hurt or harm another person. Um, there's usually a disproportionate, I guess, power ratio between the person receiving the harassment or bullying than the person giving it. There's always something that this person has maybe over them, and the target having the person who's being the target, I think, has trouble stopping the action towards them because they just get bombarded. And for some reason, people that do this, these bullies, these people who harass, they seem to have this astronomical amount of time that's just like, why are you channeling so much of this? If you were to use the same energy to solve world hunger, man, we'd be feeding the globe. But it's one of these things where they have a hard time getting out from under it because the person is so scorned that all of their venom goes to them. And I think that's what she's talking about. She's like, every time I try to do something or I see something, now I have to sit on my hands because he has completely blanket, stated this situation to what it's not. I think the difference between bullying and harassment is the bullying behavior is directed as a target that belongs to a protected class. So I think harassment looks at like race or color, or religion, sexual orientation, disability, that kind of things. Where bullying is kind of like, I want you to hurt like I hurt. So that being said, I think she's being harassed. She's being harassed because she is a mother of the children. I think she's being harassed because of her, we'll call it disability with her addiction recovery. I think that she's being harassed because of her lack of income, we should say, right? Because he's put a lot of law stipulations on there. There's a lot of things that I think qualify for that. So there are different ways we've got to look at what this includes. There are tangible bullying moments. These are things that like money, material items, right? I'm going to not give you these things, or you can't have access to these things. There's verbal bullying, which happens a lot. It's what she's going through too. Verbal bullying is kind of like, some criticism. They try to shame you or insult you with their words. Now, a lot of times, if your self-worth and self-esteem is lower, my gosh, that could end in tragedy. It's a situation where when people come up to me, and I've had this before, people say, you are the worst therapist known to man. I once served as an LDS bishop, and someone said to me, you're the worst bishop we ever had. And I'm like, that's okay. I completely understand. I get where that's coming from. I get it. I understand. Or, all these things, you're the worst, like person in addiction recovery, or you're whatever. I don't take it to heart. And the reason why I don't is because I've learned through all these experiences, even as a kid, that it's a choice to be offended. But the reason why is because I know who I am. I know what I show up to do. In her situation, it's going to be a lot more difficult because she's come from a heavy background. And this is something that she's been repetitive through growing up, right? And then she gets into a relationship, and it's the same concept, it's the same stuff. So every time she gets a little bit ahead of the game, she starts feeling as though now I'm being suppressed. And so she's like, is this really true? And the one thing that I've talked to her about before she even submitted this question was that very thing. What if they're right? They're not right. The only reason you believe or even think that they're right is because you've heard it so much. And it's a little bit more challenging when we open the door to the people that do love and support her. And several of you listen to this, I know who this person is. But the cool part about it is being able to show the real relationship stuff, the people that really support. And say, let's teach you how to not get engaged with this person because they're doing this for a reason. These people over here are doing this because they care. So that passive aggressive bullying is rough. Um, this is like sarcasm and all kinds of other stuff, and they just are nonstop. Cyberbullying is a big one. This is what we see a lot of. Where this is, and some of you, unfortunately, and I apologize, have been victims of cyberbullying with us, obviously, with this individual. And cyberbullying is where a lot of it comes from behind the computer, and a lot of it comes behind a keyboard, because the face-to-face stuff would be too much of a reality check. In our case, our individual is being pursued by law enforcement, and he's being very elusive. The problem being is that, yeah, when you're cyberbullying, it's kind of hard to find the person. But we see this a lot. We see this. This is why it's important to keep everything. And I know that sucks, but we have pages and pages and pages of stuff, and it's interesting because I'm like, this guy's put out so much stuff. I don't think he realizes how much we have. I'm like, kind of rough there. And this is what hurts too, is you've got to keep this stuff. And it's not always fun to keep, because there's always be that folder on your home screen that's like, the bully or whatever. But you've got to keep it. And then the last part of bullying is physical bullying. And this is where things get violent. This is where things get intense. This is where it can turn into domestic abuse, sexual abuse, those kind of things. Now, all of this needs to be reported. Every bit of it. Every bit of it needs to be tracked, and every bit of it needs to be reported. It's taken years to document everything that we've been through with this individual. It's been years that I know she's been through this bullying with this ex-spouse and his family. And she's got so much stuff. She's like, well, who's going to listen? Now that's the part that hurts, guys, is that who's going to listen? The police? It's a catch-22, because there's a lot they should do, but there's a lot they can't do. And some of these things that happen to people, even though they've gone reported through bullying and harassment, they get the same thing. It's like, well, we hope everything's okay. We can't really do much. It's like, what are you talking about? Active death threats, threats of kidnapping my children, all these things. And they're like, well, until there's a crime, we can't do anything. I'm thinking, ouch. This is where legislation needs to come in. This is where we've got to be the boots on the ground to help people see that there's more issues than this, because it's always kind of the thing you hear on the True Crime podcast, which was there was 1,000 warning signs leading up to it, but then there was one day when it happened, and no one was surprised except for the person that was injured or killed. Well, yeah. What do we do as bystanders, right? As bystanders, if you have someone that's going through this, I think we've definitely got to question the behavior of the bully and focus on the interactions. So for her, let's get you the support that you need. I'm available. I know that Marissa's available. You have some amazing teammates that are available. But now let's also get some legal minds on this too. There's a lot of consulting that can happen. I know there's some free legal advice that can happen. And let's start building a track record. Let's start building you a track record. Let's start building you a foundation. Character references are great. I think they're important. I think we all should ask each other at times in our lives to write character references. And the reason why is because even if you don't submit them to a job you're going to get, it's also kind of nice to have to see how people see you. And I love when people ask me for that, because I'm like, that's kind of a privilege to be able to do that for someone. I would say also remember that there's strength in numbers. So you've got a team behind you. And there will be some people where I know that when the time came and there was a mediator or a judge involved, it's kind of funny because the individual we're dealing with, if it went to court, it would be a home run. We have hours of horrible voicemails. We have thousands of emails. We have a lot of documentation. But for her, I question, I get worried because I'm like, how much of this have you kept? And it hurts. But also it's like, let's look at the situation that you're in. Okay, let's look at the reality. There's been so much time and attention being put on what you're not doing. What is he doing? So it's like turn the mirror back over, right? Like point the finger back at yourself. And once that happens, those people, they're not prepared for that. And so once that finger gets pointed back to them, that's when they lose their minds. And so if you're a victim of this, you got to pick your battles. We do. You got to pick your battles. I would say, leave it if you can. Definitely document every offense. Write this stuff down. If you are a predator, if you are listening to this and you are one of these aggressive people, consider getting yourself some help, getting yourself some counseling, get yourself some therapy. Chances are you yourself have gone through some trauma. And I'm not going to discredit that. I mean, chances are you've been hurt. Address it. Don't carry that around and channel it to people that you felt might have wronged you. Let it go. Go get yourself some help so that you don't have to feel that way anymore, so that you can start opening up and maybe even build better relationships than trying to force them. The mental health aspects of bullying, you guys, it's pretty thick. And I think that we see it all the time. We see it in tragedies. We see it in family members. I think that the harmful aspects of that residually flow into the children, into the people that care about these people. And so realistically, surround yourself with greatness. Let's not do this alone. There's resources that we can provide for counseling for the people going through this specifically, but also to get you in touch with people that we know could help you through public advocacy, even lawyer retention, right down into some coaches that can help you understand how to document some of this stuff. You have the right to have a person or a mentor to help do this for you if you yourself don't understand it. And so if you're in a situation like this, don't wait. There's been too many tragedies by which we didn't think people would act out on things that they've threatened, and it never turns out well. And so we take everything like this very seriously. You should too. And really, let's expose more light to it, because what I've noticed is that when your light turns on, right, when you start coming clean, when you start getting clean, when you start producing or serving, your family, your community, like us, that light will also attract the darkness, because they'll see it from a mile away too. And there are a lot of people out there that don't want to see you become bright, because then it casts light on their darkness and they want to hide from it. And so they'll try and take it from you. It's a classic good versus evil, dark versus light. It's the same thing. Truth will prevail through these kind of things. So surround yourself. Let's get you help. Know which it is. Is it bullying? Is it harassment? Neither of them are okay. One, I think, could be considered more dangerous for you. The other one could be something that I think is going to be more harmful for you. So let's get you the help that you need. And this is a hard one, you guys. I have a hard time with this kind of stuff, because I'm thinking, guys, can we not just be okay with each other? If we have differences of opinion, if we have different ideas, when you start threatening someone else because they don't see things the way you see, do you not understand the complexity behind that it's your issue, not theirs? Nonetheless, it's a hard one. I know you've endured this well. I've seen you for the past several years, so I know you're enduring this well, but don't give up. Don't give up, because this is where they think things start to shine. And don't be afraid to talk about it. It's okay. And the times that I know you have talked about this specifically to the person who asked this question, you've done so eloquently. Even when there's been more information that I'm like, I need to know this, you didn't think it was relevant. And that's okay too, because you have a certain understanding on how you want to handle it as well. But we're here for you. So it's a good question. And it's one we're dealing with. It's one that I know a lot of people deal with. It comes with the territory. I see it all the time. I talk to my daughters about this kind of stuff. Sometimes you may not realize that you're doing things that are a little bit, in question. Like, should I really be writing this post? So think about, your thinking, I guess. Nonetheless, that was a very long-winded discussion, but I think it's interesting. I think it really is how we deal with these kind of things and how we adapt to it, specifically if you're in early recovery, because there's so much stuff that could potentially go wrong. And you're just waking up, and it's kind of like I had a friend once who had this happened to. We were playing ball, and I didn't play baseball. I was one of these guys that kind of hung back, and you had to have money to play that kind of stuff. And if it brought joy or fun, it was a little bit too much for my family's blood to invest in. So I was there at one of my friends' games, and they did a great game. We were little league. I mean, we were little guys, and it was interesting because we get in the car to drive home, and he's driving home with his dad. I'm in the back seat. And this kid, my friend, had made a play that did really well and pretty much sealed the deal on the game, and the team won, and it's in the books. And as he's talking about it, we're talking about it on the way home. The comment comes up, well, yeah, you did that, but tell me what happened when you made the error at second. And from the back seat perspective, when I was looking at this, and I was a kid, so I didn't know what was going on until I thought about this years later, right? But I watched that interaction, and when his dad asked that question, I watched my friend kind of just slump down. And he's like, I don't know. He was like, didn't really think about it. He's like, well, you got to watch this, you've got to do that, and you need to think about this, and if you can look ahead for that. And I could just see my buddy kind of like just slowly melting into the front seat of the car. And there was an obvious mood shift, right? Now, granted, we were kids. I didn't really know the magnitude of that until years later when I started thinking about that and thinking, that's a really strange way to say I'm proud of you, right? It's to be critical and to be overdriven with the mistake and not the success. Now, I know what dad was doing. I get it. I get it now as a dad. I get it as a dad. He was like saying, that's awesome. And if you can improve in that area, you'd be phenomenal. But that's not the way the message was delivered. The timing was wrong. The emphasis on the mistake was wrong. The should have, you need to's, that control talk. That's what that is. If I'm like, you need to do this and you need to do that, I'm control talking you. And so instead of reactively listening, you went internal. Now, if that was a small window into that, I don't know, situation, a little period of time, what else? Homework, school, working choices, all these other things have that same thing where it's easy to be critical about the negative stuff or the errors or the mistakes that we see. But very few parents and very few people point out all the positive stuff. It could be like, man, the error on second base was totally, completely like obliterated when you flip and did this over there. Like, how did you focus on that and not get stuck in the negative? Can you see how if you would have changed the question a little bit, still identify like, hey, there's still room for improvement, but you came back a couple of plays later and you pulled one off that was phenomenal. That's not the way it went. Now, as humans, we do that. We always see the negative. It's part of our genetic code, I guess. And it takes a lot of training to start seeing the good. Because even the situation we're going through on Addict to Athlete and the situation you're dealing with, sister athlete here, there's good in it too. And it's only as bad or as good as we want it to be. The good part is it really does push me out of my comfort zone, because when you guys get these messages from this individual, a lot of you are like, whatever, only because you know who we are. That's the good part, right? It's also like, that's also a potential for us to talk about these kind of things and to get this stuff out in the open because it happens to everybody. But we don't do that as often. We don't come home to a house that's completely wrecked because your kids are messy and they're living in a home. We come home and we're like, this house is trashed. It looks like crap. What are you guys doing? How come you left all these cupboards open? Why are there lights left on? And I'm saying this because I've said this to my kids too, you guys, I'm not perfect. But then it kills the mood, right? If I'm like, man, you guys have been really busy today, it looks like a lot of fun here. Would you guys mind helping? 5 minutes, let's go. 10, 3, 2, 1, let's do this. That takes energy, which is funny because it takes more energy to stay pissed and to be angry. So I guess it boils down to, what kind of life do you want? We are critical enough on ourselves just because of what addiction's done. I don't think we need any more of this from our emotional rhythm of life. I don't think we need any more input from our negative parts of our brain. It takes practice to see the good. It absolutely does. And especially in a world right now where everything seems so dark and so bleak. Gas prices, wars overseas, gun violence, addictions, pandemic, all these things look horrible, but you guys, there's still so much good happening too. There's so much good happening. last night at the Addict Athlete meeting. We talked a little bit about, never giving up, just staying focused on the things that are going to make you better. Surrounding yourself with great people, having experiences. That's why we're having the No One Left Behind run. This is why we're having the proxy run. This is why we're having the fireworks show. So we're opening chapters all over Utah, is because we want to give the good back. But with the good's also going to be some bad. And I'm telling you, the bad comes in different kind of forms. It's not just harassment and bullying, but it comes in losing people that you love to addiction, to accidents. It turns into having to leave people behind who don't want to change with you. It comes with like the heartburn of responsibility and the anxiety of like, can I get a better job now to pay for all this that I've had, kind of come at me at once. The world is how you view it. If you view it through darkness, that's all you're going to see. If you believe in and you are optimistic about, life's going to be much better. And I see this. I see people get up on their high horses and they make all these proclamations. Shoot, I've done them myself, and it's led to nothing good. But what I've noticed is that if we can be emotionally connected with ourselves first, with others second, there's nothing that's going to stand in your way. And even the naysayers, the ones that try to pull you back down as you're trying to jump out of that crab basket, they're not going to be able to get a good grip on you. And they're going to be shocked on the other side of that when you get out and you look back into that bucket and you put your hand out there to help them get out. That's the kind of, I think, lifestyle and personality we want to create here. So, I mean, that was a humongous, like soapbox. I'm sorry, we get to one question. See how this happens? We have a couple other questions. We'll drop these in your direct messaging. A little bit passionate there, and it's funny how fast that hour went. Oh my gosh, have I been talking that long, you guys? Most of you are probably tuning way out like Blue, man. Move on. Nonetheless, I want to thank you for sticking around. Thank you so much. Back at it next week. Marissa will be back in town, having a great experience. I want you to know how much we appreciate you downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Go check out the Party in the Back podcast now. A lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun driven. Not so much heavy topics. And Josh does a great job, and I'm excited to do this with him. After this first 8 straight downloads you'll have for each day, it'll come out every Tuesday. So you have the Addict Athlete podcast on Monday, the Party in the Back on Tuesday, the One-on-One with Coach Blu on Thursday, and of course, the Agents of Recovery on Friday. So realistically, we've got something coming almost every day. So thank you so much for subscribing. Share this podcast with anybody who needs it. Let's get your questions answered. Hope to bring you on live next week. Same time, noon here, Utah County area. What is that, Mountain Standard Time? So put it out there. We'd love to have you as a guest. And until next time, please continue to turn that mess of addiction into the message of sobriety.